The Hours by Michael Cunningham. Prologue. Mrs. Woolf. Leonard goes upstairs to the sitting room to listen to the news. He finds a blue envelope addressed to him on the table. Inside is a letter.
Dearest, I feel certain that I'm going mad again. I feel we can't go through another of these terrible times, and I shan't recover this time. I begin to hear voices and can't concentrate, so I'm doing what seems the best thing to do. You have given me the greatest possible happiness. You have been in every way all that anyone could be. I don't think two people could have been happier till this terrible disease came. I can't fight it any longer. I know that I'm spoiling your life, that without me you could work. And you will, I know. You see, I can't even write this properly. I can't read. What I want to say is that I owe all the happiness of my life to you. You have been entirely patient with me and incredibly good. I want to say that everybody knows it. If anybody could have saved me, it would have been you. Everything is gone from me but the certainty of your goodness. I can't go on spoiling your life any longer. I don't think two people could have been happier than we have been.
Leonard races from the room, runs downstairs. He says to the maid, I think something has happened to Mrs. Woolf. I think she may try to kill herself. Which way did she go? Do you see her leave the house? The maid, panicked, begins to cry. Leonard rushes out and goes to the river, past the church and the sheep, past the osier bed. At the river bank, he finds no one but a man in a red jacket, fishing. She is borne quickly along by the current. She appears to be flying, a fantastic figure, arms outstretched, hair streaming, the tail of the fur coat billowing behind. She floats heavily through shafts of brown granular light. She does not travel far. Her feet, the shoes are gone, strike the bottom occasionally, and when they do, they summon up a sluggish cloud of muck, filled with the black silhouettes of leaf skeletons that stands all but stationary in the water after she has passed long out of sight. Stripes of green-black weed catch in her hair and the fur of her coat, and for a while her eyes are blindfolded by a thick swatch of weed, which finally loosens itself and floats, twisting and untwisting and twisting again. She comes to rest eventually against one of the palings of the bridge at southeast. The current presses her, worries her, but she is firmly positioned at the base of the squat, square column, with her back to the river and her face against the stone. She curls there with one arm folded against her chest and the other afloat over the rise of her hip. Some distance above her is the bright, rippled surface. The sky reflects unsteadily there, white and heavy with clouds, traversed by the black cutout shapes of roofs. Cars and trucks rumble over the bridge. A small boy, no older than 3, crossing the bridge with his mother, stops at the rail, crouches, and pushes a stake he's been carrying between the slats of the railing so it will fall into the water. His mother urges him along, but he insists on staying a while, watching the stake as the current takes it. Here they are, on a day early in the Second World War. The boy and his mother on the bridge, the stake floating over the water's surface, and Virginia's body at the river's bottom. As if she's dreaming of the surface, the stake, the boy and his mother, the sky and the roots. To Mrs. Dalloway. Richard's hallway, painted the same arrowroot biscuit color, is still tiled as it must have been at the turn of the century. The linoleum gives out mysteriously on the second story. Its floor, bordered in a mosaic of geometric pale yellow flowers, bears a single cigarette butt stained with red lipstick. Clarissa knocks at Richard's door, pauses, knocks again.
Who is it?
Just me.
Who?
Clarissa.
Oh, Mrs. Dalloway. Oh, come in.
Isn't it time, she thinks, to dispense with the old nickname? If he's having a good enough day, she'll bring it up. Richard, don't you think it's time to just call me Clarissa? She opens the door with her key. She can hear Richard speaking in the other room in a low, amused voice, as if he is imparting scandalous secrets. She can't tell what he is saying. She makes out the word hurl, which is followed by Richard's low, rumbling laugh, a slightly pained sound, as if laughter was something sharp that had caught in his throat. Well, Clarissa thinks, is it not a day of this, then? Not a day, certainly, to bring up the subject of names. How can she help resenting Evan and all the others who got the new drugs in time? All the fortunate being of course a relative term, men and women whose minds had not yet been eaten into lace by the virus. How can she help feeling angry on behalf of Richard, whose muscles and organs have been revived by the new discoveries, but whose mind seems to have passed beyond any sort of repair other than the conferring of good days among the bad? His apartment is, as always, dim and close, overheated, full of the sage and juniper incense Richard burns to cover the smells of illness. It is unutterably cluttered, inhabited here and there by a wan circle of pulverized non-dark emanating from the brown-shaded lamps in which Richard would tolerate no bulb more powerful than 15 watts. The apartment has, more than anything, an underwater aspect. Clarissa walks through it as she would negotiate a hold of a sunken ship. It would not be entirely surprising if a small school of silver fish darted by in the half-light. These rooms do not seem in any serious way to be part of the building in which they happen to occur. And when Clarissa enters and closes behind her the big creaky door with the 4 locks, she feels, always, as if she has passed through a dimensional warp, through the looking-glass, as it were, as if the lobby, stairwell, and hallway exist in another realm altogether, another time.
Good morning,
she calls.
Is it still morning?
Yes, it is. Richard sits in his chair. The shades are drawn and all 6 or 7 lamps are lit, though their feeble output barely adds up to the illuminating power of one ordinary desk lamp. Richard, in the far corner, in his absurd flannel robe, an adult-sized version of a child's robe, ink blue, covered with rockets and helmeted astronauts, is as gaunt and majestic and as foolish as a drowned queen still seated on a throne. He has stopped whispering. He sits with his head thrown back slightly and his eyes closed, as if listening to music.
Good morning, my dear,
Clarissa says again. He opens his eyes.
Look at all those flowers.
They're for you. Have I died? They're for the party. How's your headache this morning?
Better, thank you.
Did you sleep?
I don't remember.
Yes, I believe I did. Thank you. Richard, it's a beautiful summer day. How about if I let in a little light?
If you like.
She goes to the nearest of the 3 windows and, with some difficulty, raises the oiled canvas shade. A compromised daylight falls into the room. Richard's face, its hollows and deep, fleshly folds, its high glossy forehead and smashed pugilist nose, seems to rise up out of the darkness like a sunken sculpture hauled to the surface.
Awfully bright,
he says. Light is good for you. She goes to him, kisses the curve of his forehead. Up close like this, she can smell his various humors. His pores exude not only his familiar sweat, which has always smelled good to her, starchy and fermented, sharp in the way of wine, but the smell of his medicines, a powdery, sweetish smell. He smells, too, of unfresh flannel and slightly horribly of the chair in which he spends his days. Are they here today? Clarissa asks. No, Richard answers with the reluctant candor of a child. They're gone now. They're very beautiful and quite terrible. Yes, I know, she says. I think of them as coalescences of black fire. I mean, they're dark and bright at the same time. There was one that looked a bit like a black electrified jellyfish. They were singing just now in a foreign language. I believe it may have been Greek, archaic Greek. Are you afraid of them? No, well, sometimes. I think I'm going to talk to Bing about increasing your medication. Would that be all right? He sighs wearily. The fact that I sometimes don't hear them or see them doesn't mean they're gone, he says. But if you don't hear them or see them, Clarissa says, you can rest. Honestly, you didn't sleep at all last night, did you? Oh, a little. I'm not so worried about sleep. Much more worried about you. You look so thin today. How are you? I'm fine. I can only stay a minute. I've got to get the flowers in water. Right. The flowers, the party. Oh my. I saw a movie star on my way over here, Clarissa says. I think that's probably a good omen, don't you? Richard smiles wistfully. Oh, well, omens, he says. Do you believe in omens? Do you think we're taken that much notice of? Do you think we're worried over like that? Why, wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, maybe it's so. He will not ask the name of the movie star. He actually does not care. Richard, alone among Clarissa's acquaintance, has no essential interest in famous people. Richard genuinely does not recognize such distinctions. It is, Clarissa thinks, some combination of monumental ego and a kind of savantism. Richard cannot imagine a life more interesting or worthwhile than those being lived by his acquaintances and himself, and for that reason one often feels exalted, expanded in his presence. He is not one of those egotists who miniaturize others. He is the opposite kind of egotist, driven by grandiosity rather than greed, and if he insists on a version of you that is funnier, stranger, more eccentric and profound than you suspect yourself to be, capable of doing more good and more harm in the world than you've ever imagined, it is all but impossible not to believe, at least in his presence and for a while after you have left him, that he alone sees through to your essence, weighs your true qualities. Some have ended their relations with him rather than continue as figures in the epic poem is always composing inside his head, the story of his life and passions. But others, Clarissa among them, enjoy the sense of hyperbole he brings to their lives, have come even to depend on it, the way they depend on coffee to wake them up in the mornings and a drink or two to send them off at night. Clarissa says, superstitions are a comfort sometimes. I don't know why you so adamantly refuse all comforts. Do I? Oh, I don't mean to. I like comforts, some of them. I like some of them very much. How are you feeling? Well, quite well. A bit ephemeral. I keep dreaming I'm sitting in a room.
The party's at 5, do you remember? The party's at 5 and the ceremony comes after, at 8, uptown. You remember all that, don't you?
He says,
Yes.
Then he says, no.
Which is it?
She asks.
Sorry. I seem to keep thinking things already happened. Did you ask if I remembered about a party and a ceremony? I thought you meant did I remember having gone to them. Yeah, and I did remember. I seem to have fallen out of time. The party and the ceremony are tonight, in the future. I understand. In a way I understand. You see, I seem to have gone into the future too. I have a distinct recollection of the party that hasn't happened yet. I remember the awards ceremony perfectly. Did I bring you breakfast this morning?
She asks.
What a question they did. And did you eat it? I remember eating it, but it's possible that I only meant to. Is there a breakfast lying around here somewhere? Not as far as I can see. Then I suppose I managed to eat it. Food doesn't matter much, does it? Food matters a great deal, Richard.
He says,
I don't know if I can bear it, Clarissa. Bear what? Being proud and brave in front of everybody. I recall it vividly. There I am, a sick, crazy wreck, reaching out with trembling hands to receive his little trophy.
Honey, you don't need to be proud. You don't need to be brave. It's not a performance.
Of course it is. I got a prize for my performance. You must know that. I got a prize for having AIDS and going nuts and being brave about it. It had nothing to do with my work. Stop this, please. It has everything to do with your work. You don't think they'll give it to me if I were healthy, do you? Why, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. Please. Well, then, maybe you should refuse it. That's the awful thing. I won the prize, I do. It would be far easier if one cared more or less about winning prizes. Is it here somewhere? What? The prize. I like to look at it. You haven't gotten it yet. It's tonight. Yes, that's right, tonight. Richard, dear, listen to me. This can be simple. You can take simple, straightforward pleasure in this. I'll be there with you, every minute. I'll like that. It's a party. It's only a party. It will be populated entirely by people who respect and admire you. Really? Who? You know who? Howard, Alisa, Martin Campo. Martin Campo? Oh, my lord. I thought you liked him. You've always said you did. Well, yes, I suppose the lion likes the zookeeper too. Martin Campo has steadfastly published you for over 30 years. Who else is coming? We've been over and over this. You know who's coming. Tell me one more name, won't you? Tell me the name of someone heroic. Martin Campo's heroic, don't you think? He has sunk his entire family fortune into publishing important, difficult books he knows won't sell.
Richard closes his eyes, leans his gaunt head back against the worn, oily knobble of the chair.
All right, then,
he says. She would like to take him by his bony shoulders and shake him hard. Richard may, although one hesitates to think in quite his terms, be entering the canon. He may at this last moment in his earthly career be receiving the first hints of a recognition that will travel far into the future, assuming of course there is any future at all. A prize like this means more than a notice of a congress of poets and academics. It means that literature itself seems to feel a need for Richard's particular contribution, his defiantly prolix lamentations over worlds either vanishing or lost entirely. While there are no guarantees, it does seem possible, and perhaps even better than possible, that Clarissa and a small body of others have been right all along. Richard the dense, the wistful, the scrutinizing, Richard who observed so minutely and exhaustively, who tried to split the atom with words, will survive after other, more fashionable names have faded. And Clarissa, Richard's oldest friend, his first reader, Clarissa who sees him every day, when even some of his more recent friends have come to imagine he's already died, is throwing him a party. Clarissa is filling her home with flowers and candles. Why shouldn't she want him to come? Richard says, I'm not really needed there, am I? The party can go on just with the idea of me. The party has already happened, really, with or without me. Now you're being impossible. I'm going to lose my patience soon. No, please, don't be angry, oh Mrs. Dalloway. The truth is I'm embarrassed to go to this party. I've failed so terribly. Don't talk like that. No, you're kind. You're very kind, but I'm afraid I've failed. And that's sad. It was just too much for me. I thought I was a bigger figure than I was. Can I tell you an embarrassing secret? Something I've never told anyone. Of course you can. I thought I was a genius. I actually used that word probably to myself. Well, pride. I was so wrong. It defeated me. It simply proved insurmountable. That was so much, far too much for me. I mean, there's the weather, there's the water and the land, there are the animals and the buildings and the past and the future. There's space, there is history, there's this thread or something caught between my teeth. There's the old woman across the way. Did you notice she switched a donkey and a squirrel on a windowsill? And of course there's time and place. And there's you, Mrs. Dalloway. I wanted to tell part of the story or part of you. Oh, I would love to have done that. Richard, you wrote the whole book. But everything's left out of it. Almost everything. And then I just stuck on a shock ending. Oh, no, I'm not looking for sympathy, really. We want so much, don't we? Yes, I suppose we do. You kissed me beside a pond. 10,000 years ago. That's still happening. In a sense, yes. In reality, that's happening in that present. This is happening in this present. You're tired, darling. You must rest. I'm going to call Bing about your medicine, all right? Oh, I can't rest. Come here, come closer, would you, please? I'm right here. Closer, take my hand. Clarissa takes one of Richard's hands in hers. She's surprised, even now, at how frail it is, how palpably it resembles a bundle of twigs. He says, Here we are, don't you think? Pardon me? We're middle-aged and we're young lovers standing beside a pond. We're everything all at once. Isn't it remarkable? Yes. I don't have any regrets, really, except that one. I wanted to write about you, about us, really. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to write about everything, the life we're having and the lives we might have had. I wanted to write about all the ways we might die. Don't regret anything, Richard. Clarissa says, There's no need. You've done so much. That's kind of you to say so. What you need right now is a nap. Do you think so? I do. All right then. Shu says, I'll come to help you get dressed. How's 3:30? It's always wonderful to see you, Mrs. Dalloway. He lifts his massive, ravished head. Clarissa turns her face sideways and receives Richard's kiss on her cheek. It's not a good idea to kiss him on the lips. A common cold will be a disaster for him. Clarissa receives the kiss on her cheek, squeezes Richard's thin shoulder with her fingertips. "I'll see you at 3:30, she says. "Wonderful," Richard says.